We are recording. Ken, how are you today?
Good, Stu. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. Where are you right now?
I'm in London, where I've lived for the last couple of years since I moved from Dublin.
Nice, nice. Well, Kim, we start off your playlist, and we always do this the same way by asking guests to tell us the song that they regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Yes, so I went for the Stone Roses, who are a very important band for me. I guess one of the first reasons why I started listening to I guess rock music in the first place, and also my first ever tattoo of the lemon. And yeah, Breaking Into Heaven is the intro of their second album, Second Coming, and is just a really arrogant 3.5 minute bongo solo at the beginning of what I think took 7 or 8 years to come out for in their second album. So yeah, a real kind of fuck you, we'll do what we want kind of thing, and it's just a brilliant song in general, builds throughout, um, and yeah, a fantastic second album.
And and it's weird, like, and it did feel like a bit of a statement, the second coming, because as an old man, I remember, I was 16 in '89 when Stone Roses dropped, and it was the most exciting and, important movement in UK music for what felt like years. And then such a gap, and then such anticipation for what they were going to come back with. And it divided a lot of people, Second Coming. A lot of people were not like feeling it.
Really?
But a band's got to progress and change and
Yeah.
evolve. But I'm just intrigued to know that you chose the Roses as a band that kind of got you into rock music. Like, you're a young lad. Like, how did it turn out to be the Roses that were like the kind of catalyst for your taste change?
Don't know if I'm that young now anymore, Stu, but I don't know. I think like we'll get on to some other bands that got me into music, but um, I think in general, I had one friend especially who was just crazy about the Roses, and his dad had introduced him to that. I had quite a rejection of old music when I was like 12, 13, turning into kind of a teenager, just purely because I guess I wanted to reject whatever my parents were listening to at the time, which was kind of a lot of Tom Waits and Leonard Cohen and the Waterboys and stuff, and a lot of artists that I have kind of come full circle back around with, and have had another go at listening to in another life, but yeah, the Stone Roses, for whatever reason, are one that just connected with me, and gave me that sense of, I guess, when you listen to rock music, that feeling that we all unanimously agree on, the feeling of kind of um, a divergent kind of aggression, and it was the first kind of time I think I was stimulated by that feeling, especially kind of probably hitting puberty and stuff at the time. It was kind of timely for me. So yeah, they became a massive band for me, and luckily enough, I got to see them on their last tour. Um, before what was supposed to have been a third album campaign,
Yeah.
and then and never came. So I got to see them in the Etihad, with my mate who had recently just actually broken up with his girlfriend, who he was going to bring. So I was lucky enough to see them on their last tour.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, if we talk about the track itself, and it's quite a self-indulgent and start to a record. Um, and I want to sort of speak to you a little bit now as an artist, how in 2025 the way that people consume their music is very different to how people would consume music in the early 90s when Second Coming dropped. And I think a lot of that comes down to streaming services, and I think the likes of streaming services and artists using TikTok and stuff to promote music all seems to, for me, this might be a wild generalization, seems to kind of tie in with what appears to be shortening attention spans. Um, Whereas I think if a new artist went into a record label and suggested Breaking Into Heaven to kick off an album, I think you'd be laughed out the door now and said, that will not work with algorithms and blah blah blah, and all that nonsense. This is I'm going right away around the houses to answer this question, Cian, but these kind of changes in how people are consuming the music and these attention spans that seem to be getting tighter and stuff, does any of that filter through into your creative process?
Big time. Our intro song on our second album is 6 minutes. We did this same, which is probably from Breaking the Tab was probably a big influence on that and the effect it had. Yeah, I think it's I think, do you know what, it's like music is cyclical, and things fluctuate back and forth. Like the political system seems to in a lot of countries, and I think what the short form thing certainly works for certain genres, but I think there's also a rejection of that within people, and I think you see that in the resurgence of physical format. People don't have the same impact from streaming anymore, and there's I guess two types of people: those who buy physical products, and those that don't. So I would say that there still is a pretty big, by the sounds of it, cohort of people who do still appreciate the long form. Books are having a huge resurgence, like physical books and long form content, and I think it's just there's two different styles, and there's definitely a bit of a battle between them at the moment, and some artists are conceding to the short form, more money, easy kind of churning out and quantity over quality, but I think there will always be a space for quality in what we consider to be art, so while there's probably merit in both, I think from a creative perspective, only one of them is fulfilling, and I think that's just to me as an artist. So we've tried to go down that route as often as we can, and we hope that when it comes to marketing and stuff, labels will say that TikTok and stuff is important, but we have this discussion all the time, whether we're suggested, would you get somebody to follow you around and video you the whole time, which is just for extra content, and like if you look at any of your favorite artists, how many of them are good at marketing, and the answer is most likely none. So what do you want to put your time into ultimately? And if I was to be a fan of an artist, if they were selling their soul on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, there would just be something about it that wouldn't sit right with me for whatever reason. I think that's because you look up to your icons and you want them to be, and not to say that sounds like self-indulgent on my part, we're icons to no one, but if I was to look up to icons, you don't want to see them trying to sell you this thing, and I think that's the problem. People underestimate the intelligence of audiences, and yeah, I guess different people are catering to different things, but I would strongly be a long form consumer.
I'm going to ask you for your second track, Cian, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Yeah, I've kind of had to stick with my answer now, regretfully. But the first song I remember hearing, it was probably 3 or 4 years old, and it was Westlife, Coast to Coast. I've since learned, which was detrimental to my my fandom, my short-lived fandom for them, at that age, was that they are cover acts, which at the time, I didn't fully realize, but I guess so was Elvis. So there you go. But yeah, I remember just dancing around in my apartment in Paris, aged 4 or 5, and me and my brother just dancing around to them on CD.
What was the emotion?
Just, I guess, discovery. Just discovery of a feeling that could be produced by a form of media. It was probably my first ever time getting an external an external form of media coming in and being able to make you feel a certain way, and I guess that gives you a certain level of control, doesn't it, over how you feel. Now you can feel something when you want to feel like that, and I think that's what music does for people. So I guess that looking back with 25 years of hindsight, I'm able to say that now. But yeah.
It's over Christmas, the BBC put a documentary on the iPlayer about boy bands. I think there's like three or four. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's fantastic. It sort of breaks down the kind of sort of culture of boy bands and the impact that it has on the individuals and just the whole concept of this manufactured band and growing up in the 90s, just thinking, okay, so Take That must be the biggest boy band of all time. But Westlife's chart success is unparalleled. Like, I think it was just that they were clearly the most successful. Like, they had like so many number one hits back when I guess the charts were so important in the I guess the consumers kind of mindset in music. And I think probably because I was too old, but I didn't realize just how successful that band were.
Yeah, I mean, probably unbeknownst to me as well, to be honest. But yeah, certainly was. We had another one as well from Ireland, didn't we? Boys on,
Boyzone.
Boys on
Mm.
as well. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it was a funny time actually getting into music as a profession around that era of probably One Direction and Justin Bieber and the X Factor mostly as well. Which like you look back at some of them auditions and they are brutal, man. I can't believe that was actually aired on TV because it is like it kind of makes a mockery of a lot of people, but it was this big focus on vanity and focus on um, just it was completely focused on what people want to hear. You have to dress this way, look this way, and all this stuff. And I guess the introduction to rock music for me was like, okay, well, there's an avenue. Maybe that's something I can carry on. So I guess I have to apologize to my 4-year-old self.
You mentioned the music that you was some of the music you was exposed to growing up at home. You mentioned Tom Waits and Leonard Cohen, both incredible artists. So tell me a little bit about home and growing up. Was it a very musical environment?
No, not really at all. No. I mean, my mum just listened to classical music. So I was put into piano lessons as a child. As I said, I lived in Paris for 4 or 5 years as a kid. So that was my upbringing and where I learned to play music um, and then came back to Ireland. But yeah, my memories of musically were driving in the car around France on holidays, and my dad only had 4 or 5 CDs at the time, and it was U2's Boy, it was Bob Marley and the Wailers, Tom Waits, Leonard Cohen, and Waterman, the Waterboys, Fisherman's Blues, and
I mean, if you can have 5 albums, that's all right.
yeah, but yeah, but I was, we just rinsed them, like it would just
Yeah.
be back to front over and over, and it's funny that the impact that's had on me, uh, with so much time passed is massive. So my manager actually just got me the Fisherman's Blues on records for my birthday, just gone, and that's because they were just such a huge influence. I could not get some of their hooks out of my head throughout the whole process. And this whole process was, I don't know if this is the question to get into it on, but like we tried to listen to nobody. Like it was the whole point was to shut ourselves off and try and discover what we were trying to sound like and say as a band and artist. So to have them constantly as this little earworm was a funny thing to try and battle with. But nonetheless, we chose a few bands that we would listen to exclusively that we could never touch or never get close to. And the idea was that we can reach but we can never grab, because I think it's so easy with so much media nowadays and the production is so good on so much stuff for it to just filter into songwriting, especially modern stuff, which is derived from. So we tried to take it from the source, and the Waterboys, yeah, just has always, I don't know, been this brilliant thorn in my foot, almost. But funny story, actually, I was talking about them the other day, but I hadn't the chance to say this. But my Scott, I always knew, lived in Dublin, so I used to work in a cafe, and he used to come in, and him and his kid would sit there for a while. I'd know who it was, and I would say nothing, and then eventually we were playing a festival last summer, and we were on the main stage, and they were playing just after us. And Mike Scott comes up to me afterwards. He's like, "Ah, great gig, man, great gig, it's brilliant." And I was like, "Mike, man, I used to serve you in Canal Bank, which is the old cafe that I used to work in." And he was like, "Canal Bank," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, Canal Bank." He was like, "I don't know what the fuck that is," and I was like, "Oh my god."
Oh no.
He had this lookalike in Dublin that must it just looked a spitting image of him that I thought, I told people in the cafe, I was like, "That's Mike Scott over there for years." But it wasn't him. It was rather embarrassing, but I'm still glad that he came up and said it well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Um, for track three, Cian, I'm going to ask you the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Time of school, yeah, I put Arctic Monkeys' "Rich Survival." I think I chose as that one. Another song that just has a lot of grit, and I think from a kind of production point of view was yeah, it was something special. I mean, Arctic Monkeys as well. I think probably they wouldn't have been had the same impact in Ireland immediately, but I would have thought would have been probably one of the first bands in the UK to have something of a similar impact to that of the Roses or Oasis or something
Yeah,
like that. So
absolutely.
um, it's hard. I don't think I've been old enough as an adult. I don't think any band has come through quite in the same way as they did, especially in Britain, anyways. Um,
What
from
what
a
are you what are your thoughts on that in regards to? I run a an alternative venue and have done for
Yeah,
30 32 years now, and I've watched scenes at the club nights, from the Mondays to
yeah,
Nirvana in the early 90s through to, you know, Oasis in the mid and so on and so on. And then that era of the Arctic Monkeys, for me, I call that the era of the K's because it was also the Killers, the Kings of Leon, the Kaisers, the Kooks, and it was all the K's.
Sabian as well.
Kasabian, yeah. And and then it feels to me since then there's not been a sort of movement of
Yeah,
guitar music that has impacted anywhere close to what those previous scenes movements did.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I,
It's
do,
funny.
you, do you see it happening again, and
Yeah,
how?
well, from Ireland at the moment, specifically in 2019, that post punk kind of scene was a big thing. Anyone that wasn't in it, including us, was like kind of sidelined from a press perspective because that was all the rage. Um, but yeah, I mean that's certainly something I think Fontaines have done a lot um but I think that's like I think it's not just musically. There seems to be an Irish resurgence across the board with acting and authors and stuff and everything at the moment. Not to mention Guinness's shortages everywhere. But I don't I think you're right. I haven't seen anything quite as impactful from a sweep you off your feet kind of movement that has galvanized. I think I don't know whether it's like it's really hard to reflect on a zeitgeist, and say what the thing was. I think no answer is probably correct in that sense, but I think the political landscape has probably changed in a way that there's no one group anymore that kind of decides on these things, and I think there's the way that music has happened. It's like if major label artists used to have a 70, and I include Domino and the Arctic Monkeys in this, like major indies. But if they have like a 70% stake, even if they do now, I think there's way more mid-level artists that are able to have a career on Spotify, and I think that means that people don't just have one favorite band; they have many favorite bands now, and I think it's maybe just spread out a lot more evenly across a lot more artists. So that those things can't exactly happen. But I mean, you do see it in particularly. I mean, you see it with some female artists like the Sabrina Carpenters and Olivia Rodrigo and stuff. That kind of craze. Where Taylor Swift as well. But in terms of from a rock perspective or an indie perspective, um, yeah, there doesn't seem to have been the same. A band that's come out and
I
done
think
something that like huge.
I do think there's bands that have obsessive, passionate followings. You mentioned Fontaine's, you know, Idol's following is very passionate and very,
Yeah.
very involved. And I'd probably say the 1975 has that as well. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it doesn't feel like there's been an amalgamation that's all come at once and pushed something forward. It just feels like there's pockets of it. And your point there about, you know, sort of more sort of mid-level bands having longer careers, I think that on the wider scale is a really positive thing. And I think, you know, that is something that I'd not considered before. I think that's a really interesting point you made there.
Yeah, it's funny when you go on like if you find a new artist and you kind of go on these, fans also like little rabbit hole. There's so many artists, who are making a steady career out of music now, and which is really positive. I think it is the wealth is being shared, and allows more people to do it, and you kind of have a lot more control over your. So you have a lot of artists that don't sign to majors anymore, and it's kind of a rejection of that. And they're able to survive on it now. That being said, there's so many more that can't get to 1,000 streams and then therefore don't get paid from Spotify. So there is a lot of arguments for both sides, but I can say safely that without Spotify, that there was no way that we had the marketing budget to get known enough to, but because of their support and the algorithm, quote unquote, whatever that means, um, we've been able to get out to a lot of people and therefore sell tickets on the back of that. Whereas at our level, as things stand, there's no way we could have survived 20 years ago.
I'm going to ask you for the first record you remember buying from a record store, please, Kim.
So it's not a record per se, but I don't know if you remember those. It was, what would it be, in early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. They had these little square things that you attached to your jeans, and they had earphones as part of them. And it was just one single song. It was probably like a 6 megabyte device, and I picked it up in my local Tesco, and it was a song. It was a song by NSYNC. I don't remember which one it was, but that was my first purchasing of music, um, and I still remember the device now. I don't remember the song anymore, but it gives me quite a nostalgic feeling thinking back.
I want to ask you about your relationship with record stores now, and um, you know, there's been films made about fantastic record shops in Ireland, and you now live in London, where there's, you know, so many fantastic independent record stores. And from that moment where you sort of started to find yourself getting more and more interested in guitar music and such, and we've also mentioned the fact that, you know, we've seen a change now in people are want the actual item in their hands now, and you know, we've seen a resurgence in vinyl and such. Like, how important as a record shop been to you, if at all, over the last years?
Yeah, big. Definitely big for us. The the support that we've had in terms of just people buying merch and stuff like that to keep us on the road has been massive. Record stores, there's such a big culture that we probably don't have as much in Ireland, to be honest, in terms of like we just announced our in-store tour. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, and it's a big thing. You buy a CD or you buy a record, and you get to see them perform in the thing. It's not as much of a culture in Ireland, so we're trying it out regardless in an independent record store called Spin Dizzle, who I think have just doubled their size, which is amazing. Being in the same place for 20 years and probably very little growth during that time, and now have had to expand. But yeah, I mean the I just for me on a personal note, just have an hour off college and being able to go in and browse and feel like you're surrounded by people who are also part of this. Almost feels like a subculture, doesn't it? If you're into music, yeah, if you're really into music, doesn't it? Weirdly enough, so I guess a sense of community within that, and then also just a sense of self discovery as you kind of browse around and yeah, just moving over to London recently. Obviously, Rough Trade East is only around the corner for me now, and we put on a show that sold out last time, and now we're doing the same again. And the for such an established name to be willing to kind of associate with us and give us that kind of stamp of approval, as if to say, we back this band and we're willing to support them is means a lot to us. I mean, I knew about Rough Trade before I got into playing music, so certainly great to know that they're not above anyone. And I think that's the thing about people who are that enthusiastic about physical records. It's like it's everyone's on the same level, and artists and fans alike.
I'm going to ask you to tell me now the song that reminds you of your time clubbing, please, Cian.
So there was a famous festival in Ireland called Life Festival that we used to go to when I was 19, 20. And I guess my fleeting memory of that experience was watching Groove Armada play and Dance the River. Is that the name of the song? So yeah. Or The River, I can't remember. But it's fantastic song that was emblematic of that time in my life, and I must have heard it so many times. And the fact that I can't fully remember the name is probably telling of those times. But yeah, no, some track Groove Armada have been staples in the electronic music industry or side of the electronic music for some time now, and them and probably Chemical Brothers as well as another worthy shout out that were my favorite. I think my favorite live gig ever. Definitely electronic gig, but I saw them at a different festival before as well, and they were fantastic.
And in regards to sort of parking up festivals for a moment and looking more at sort of clubs and bars and like what sort of stuff was you going to growing up then? Had you discovered sort of the indie clubs by then, and was you doing that kind of clubbing, or was you sort of still sort of going out and dancing to sort of electronic music? What was clubbing for you?
Yeah, we don't have indie clubs in Ireland. We have none. Like, it's funny going to Leeds. We went to the Stone Roses bar after a gig, and it was just like, God, this is so different. We don't have any of this. There's no avenue for indie music in Ireland, which is so funny because you have so many bands coming out of there. But there's no, like, you don't go in and you hear, somebody that playing in the thing. It's always different types of music. Like, electronic music is big though. It's a big kind of clubbing culture. And they're recently, I think, changing the late times to 6 a.m., which is big for that side of the scene. But yeah, we used to go to this place called the Button Factory, which we ended up playing I think on our second tour. It's a big electronic kind of club venue at the time, and we went religiously every weekend. And you get people from just DJs every week, and you just trust. It's funny because it's one of those things where you actually go because the promoter. You don't really have that in music. Like, I wouldn't go see a show just because it's Live
Yeah,
Nation or something. But in the electronic scene, it's like they're known for bringing good DJs out, because I guess the thing is with DJs, it's not all original music. They're playing with different stuff, and some originals, some covers. So they trust that. So yeah, every week we used to just go to the Button Factory and drink our hearts away and enjoy ourselves.
okay. Well, let's finish clubbing. I'll take you home now, mate, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Favorite song from an artist from my home county. My favorite Irish artist. I'm not gonna say ever, but my favorite Irish artist that's still active at the moment is Pillow Queens, and I'm gonna pick the song Liffey after the River Liffey in Dublin, as my favorite song of theirs.
Yeah, what a track! What a band!
Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, we played with them. I think it was the start of 2024, so started last year. And yeah, they're super nice people, and just brilliant music. And I hope the best for them.
Fantastic. Well, for your last track, this is where you get to play influencer, as the kids call it, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a track that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this song is, but I actually saw it in a in an ad not too long ago. So I'm not sure if it's as unknown as maybe I as it was when I first discovered it. But Roxy Music were a band that I came a bit late to the party with, and yeah, their song "In Every Dream I'm a Heartache" is a spectacular 6 minute track just to bookend with another full length song that fades out in the middle of it and then fades back in, which is
Yeah,
just a brilliant piece of trickery on their behalf. And so yeah, don't stop listening when it seems to turn off the
yeah,
first time. But yeah, just I think it was off a record called For Your Pleasure, and famously it has a very kind of famous cover of a woman in a kind of leather or latex suit on the front. And David Bowie is reading a book on him. He really fancied this woman off the image on the front, so he went to meet her at one stage, but was really disappointed because the personality didn't match the aura that the image gave off. So he ended up leaving her where she was, and yeah, just a small bit of lore behind it, but a fantastic album, fantastic song, and undervalued band, and yeah, worth a listen.
wonderful. We'll make it nice and easy, Cian, for people to go and check that out because we'll put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the show with all
Okay.
the tracks that we've spoken about. And these playlists always look really random when people are looking at the Rosie's Roxy Music and NSYNC. It always looks quite surreal, but obviously we'll put your music on there as well. And let's talk about that because we've been spending ages talking about other people's records and we've not really touched on yours. So tell us what's happening.
Yeah, we're releasing our second album on the 28th of March. A record we're incredibly proud of. I think we were kind of suffering a creative injury before some of these songs came out, and these songs breathed completely new life into the project. And I think we went through a period where we couldn't really settle on anything after the first record, and we weren't sure where to go. So instead, we just once again, I think creation is just a rejection of the past, isn't it? And so you find something new. Um, so we closed off one chapter and started another, and it feels like we've taken two steps forward with it, um, and it's certainly a bigger, more different sound, and albeit the lyrics kind of lament on former life or the idea of growing older, and something that I think is universal to everyone. It also comes from a place of um, I guess gratitude. So it's a sad topic, but spun in a way that feels happy and with future in it. Um, we took inspiration from electronic music, as I said. We didn't listen to any artists, but the first artist that I allowed to introduce or reintroduce back into our listening was Kraftwerk, so a big electronic influence, which is something that we've never been able to kind of do before, and and yeah, just a big maturity, big jump in maturity for us, and something that I didn't think I'd ever reach the level of fulfillment that I've had from the creation of this album, and thankfully I have now. So even if this is our last album, I'll be happy with how it came out.
And gigs to support the release?
Yeah, a few of them. So we're doing, as I say, an in-store tour around the UK. So starting off in London and ending in Liverpool, and then we do one day in Ireland and Dublin as well. In starting on the 28th of March till the 3rd of April, and then we get going to Germany for our first tour over there. And then later on in the year, we've already started thinking about coming back and doing some shows as well. So all of that still in the works ahead of a big European tour at the end of the year. So excited for what's to come.
Fantastic. Cian, if people want to keep up to speed with releases and tour dates, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, it's our website. So www.somebody's, the YS at the end, childmusic.com.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put that link in the show notes. So if people haven't already had a look, then they can click that link and head over and get involved. Cian, it's been an absolute delight chatting records with you, mate. Thank you so much. Best of luck with the record. Enjoy the rest of the year and touring. And I'm going to press stop now, but don't go anywhere.
Cheers, Stu. Thanks so much.